everything has life here. It's like, some stuff's built in the last 10 years and the city's still expanding and growing.
Welcome, everyone, to the Closing Table Podcast, real accounts from real estate professionals, brought to you by WindowStill. I'm your host, Kat Schooler, and today I'm sitting down with real estate agent Aaron Kramer. Aaron is out in Tempe, Arizona, having relocated there from Toledo, Ohio. So he packed up his business and has started off in a new place. And Aaron shares with us his journey into real estate, what it's been like relocating his business, the ways he goes above and beyond for his clients, and the differences between the real estate in Ohio and the real estate in Arizona. And stick around because we talk about some fun new developments that are going on out in Arizona. Without further ado, let's chat with Aaron. Aaron, thank you so much for joining me today. Can you start us off by telling us how you got into real estate?
I was working at a gym, like managing a gym back in Ohio, Toledo. And there were a few real estate agents that went there, and I'd worked there for about 4 or 5 years at that point, and it was a smaller gym, not a huge like commercial gym, but medium size, I would say. One of the guys did like real estate investing, but he was also an agent. And over the course of a year, he just like kept whispering in my ear, "You should get into real estate. You should get into real estate. You should get into real estate." So eventually I was like, yeah, I think I should get into real estate. And then COVID happened. And then I bought like my course during COVID, did the studying during COVID while the gym was shut down. Took the test after COVID, and then like did part-time at the gym and part-time real estate for about 6 months in Toledo, and then quit the gym and went full-time into real estate.
Awesome. And now you've moved to Tempe,
Right.
Arizona. So what prompted your move?
My whole life, my family and I went on like a ton of vacations. I've been to like 45 of the states, I think. So I had a good view of the United States, and like Ohio just wasn't it. I kind of wanted to go to the Southwest. I just didn't know exactly where. So I was kind of between Utah, Arizona, didn't want to go as far as California. So I flew out here on my own, spent like a week out here, met some real estate agents, got like coffee with them. The market was still flourishing at the time. And I was like, well, I think this looks like my new home. So I just put my goal as Phoenix, and it took about another year after that to get out here, but I made it happen.
Awesome. And have you stayed licensed in both states?
No, I put my Ohio on deposit. So it's like I can activate it at any time. But it's just in suspension. Most of my Ohio deals I refer out to an agent in Ohio.
Totally. I wouldn't imagine there's a lot of Ohio to Arizona movement, but
There actually is.
is
There's a lot
there?
of Ohio people out here. I'm run into them randomly all the time. My
That's
wife
so
still has
funny.
her Ohio plates on her car, so people will just come up to us at the gas station, be like, "Oh, where are you from in Ohio?" I'm like, "Oh, Toledo." They're like, Toledo."
That's too funny. That's so cool that you find some hometown people in your new
Yeah,
home. Recently, you moved from being on a team to a solo agent,
correct.
correct?
Yeah.
Talk us through like how you made that decision.
Well, I joined a team when I first got here. I was completely against the idea of joining a team. To be honest, I was solo in Ohio. I was at a brokerage that kind of had like that team feel, but you weren't on a team. Like we were pretty close knit. But I figured since I know nobody, I don't know what I'm doing out here. Like I have no connections. I figured it would be good to jump on a team and kind of get going there. So I was on this first team for about 3 months, and let's just say it wasn't going too well for the whole team. So I
Mm.
switched to a team called Rock, and I really liked the leader, and I spent almost a year there. I mean, after a year, it's like they kind of cater towards the newer agents, so like some of the material was getting regurgitated through, and I just felt like it was time. I also met a friend on that team who are now partners. So we both switched brokerages to an independent brokerage, but now we're partnered on everything. I just felt like it was the right time. I didn't have any really hard feelings against the team. I was just ready to take that next step and branch out. Plus, like team splits are ridiculous. They're killer.
Yeah, it sounds like you made the right move in terms of maybe like networking and having people to help you get to know the area, and then once you kind of learned those things that you were felt more comfortable to just kind of go back to doing your own thing.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean it took a good year. I mean, Phoenix is so big compared to Toledo, like the metro. It's I mean, it's ridiculous. It took me a full year to just kind of learn like the cities, the ins and outs, like where to go, who to see, who to meet, like that kind of stuff. So it was all kind of a shock when I first got here. But I knew, I was expecting that, and I wasn't expecting to kill my first year, which I didn't. But it was definitely a good learning experience for me.
Totally. And while we're on the subject of the areas in which you service, like what is your favorite thing about your area, especially as someone, who chose to be there, right? You weren't born and raised.
Right.
Like you picked a spot on a map and you're like, this is the place to
This is
be.
this is where to go. I mean, honestly, it's hard to not to love the weather here. Okay. So, I mean, the summers are brutal. It's already like 108 every day in June.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
And it's only going to get worse. But coming from Ohio, there's no snow in the winter. It can get as high as like 70. The mornings are still chilly, but that's easy to deal with. I love how new everything is. That's a big thing. Like, not that I don't love Ohio because I do, but you got like roads falling apart, old buildings, rundown buildings. Everything has life here. It's like, some stuff's built in the last 10 years and the city's still expanding and growing. And I like that. I loved the history in Ohio, but it's nice to be somewhere where like everything's new and taken care of and not falling apart.
That's really cool. So, would you say like a lot of your area has like more new development?
Yeah. Yeah. Or within like the last 15, 20 years, which I mean in Ohio I call that new, but here
Right.
it's old. It's like 20 years is like an old house here. And the city's still expanding. So,
That's awesome. So let's talk about when you work with clients, like when you're meeting a client for the first time, like how do you approach it? What is it like for clients to work with you?
well, I mean, I think the main reason to get into real estate was that customer care that I developed at the gym, just caring for people, wanting them to do better, wanting them to improve their life. And I thought, like, well, now I can help them with one of the most major decisions that they're going to make financially throughout the course of their life. So for me, I mean, really, it's like caring for the person. I feel like if you actually care for someone, you make that deeper connection and they can tell that you're putting your best effort in for them and not just to, per se collect a check or you're just another number on the page. That's like, I may refer back to the gym a lot, but since we were a smaller, like community gym, we weren't like just, let's say Planet Fitness that you're just another number in the door. Like, I worked the front desk. I took time to get to know every single person in there. And that's what I do in real estate. Like, I want to know about you as an individual and not just as like my client that I talk to, once every week or if something happens, like I want to know the real you and your concerns and your goals.
That's awesome. So when you're sitting down with clients for the first time, like what kind of questions are you asking them? Like what should people expect to bring to a meeting with you or any agent for that matter?
Kind of my age demographic is a lot of like first time home buyers. Sometimes I prefer them not to bring anything, like just an open mind. And we'll kind of go down the road together to figure out what you actually want and not just kind of a lot of people get distracted by like what's on the internet or the news or like interest rates are here, this is going on, home crisis. Like I want to find a solution for you and we can sit down and figure that out together. And it may not make sense this month, but it might make sense 2 years down the road. I just want to help get you to where you eventually want to be.
And so are you finding with first time home buyers that you really enjoy like the process of kind of educating them on the process of home buying?
Most people don't really know what to do, It's like they think they know, but then you throw out all these like terms and what to do with their loan officer and like this is what we got to do, this is what you got to figure out in the house. These are things we should be looking for. just because it's a nice house, is it in a good area? Like these are things we have to take into account when finding that first home. Mostly though, I work more with sellers, so um, I'd say in Ohio I did a lot more first time home buyers, but out here I don't have that strong base connection of people that I grew up with that know, like, and trust me. Um, so out here I've been dealing with a lot more sellers in their initial contact.
Nice. What kinds of lessons have you learned over your real estate journey? Like, what's one of your biggest lessons?
It's freaking hard.
Yeah.
Personally, it takes like a ton of effort, willpower, especially being solo. Like you have to commit to the grind of waking up every day when you could just not do anything because you're your own boss, and be dedicated to your craft and always be learning and always, reaching out or talking to people because some days you just don't want to. And I feel like that self-discipline has been one of the biggest teachers for me in this sphere.
Yeah, I agree. Like discipline is like motivation is great, but discipline is what's going to get it done. And I'm sure you draw a lot of that maybe from, being a trainer or working at a gym. Kind of I feel like there are actually like a lot of parallels between like being very disciplined about fitness and being very disciplined as an entrepreneur because being disciplined for your fitness is really hard too. Like I'll be the first to say.
Yeah. I coach CrossFit here. I did that in Ohio, and that was like one of the first things that I started doing when I got here because it's like a great community to be plugged into, which is, I mean, that's where I've met most of my friends here now is through the CrossFit gym. And yeah, I mean, it's a great way to meet people. And it's also, I do the 5 a.m. and 6:15 class. So every day I'm waking up at 4 a.m. and getting my butt to the gym. So it helps keep my day in check and aligned.
Totally. Are you like a two a day person?
Yeah. And then I go back at night.
Oh my gosh, that's too much. My cousin does CrossFit and he has turned a barn into a
Oh,
CrossFit
yeah.
gym and like him and all of his friends are up at like 5 a.m. doing stuff and people who do CrossFit are
Hmm.
dedicated.
Very dedicated. Takes a special
I love
person.
it. Yeah, yeah. And I think it just really honestly shows, kind of the dedication that you can show to your
Hmm.
clients.
I do. I use a lot of parallels between the gym and real estate. I think they go hand in hand.
Certainly. So, on the topic of your clients, can you think of a time like where you've gone above and beyond for someone or like a really memorable client success story?
I had a older lady that was moving from here to the UP of Michigan, and she had no family here.
From Arizona?
Yeah, from Arizona. Her her mother and father lived in the UP. So she was going back to take
Oh,
care
wow.
of them, and she was older herself. She needed to get her house organized and rearranged. So, I went over there for hours one day and helped her move all her stuff. And I'm not afraid of hard work, so sweat equity, I love that. I've helped paint people's houses. I'm not afraid to get my hands dirty. So I think that's one attribute of mine that clients can count on, is that I'm not going to give up on them, and I'm not just going to be unavailable when they need me.
That's awesome. It's so sweet because you don't have to. What motivates you to go above and beyond for your clients?
I think it just goes back to caring about them. If you make a connection with someone, I mean, you care about them, and it's like hard to turn away someone that you care about to help them when, yeah, it may take a little time out of your day, but in the end, I always think it'll be worth it. I think the little things, I believe in karma. So you do a good thing for someone and it'll be returned back to you in the future. Whether it sucks or not, like, I'll still do it.
Um Okay, so this is really interesting. So I had read this story and I want to know if you've seen it because you're out in Tempe. Have you heard of this community? It's like a neighborhood called cul-de-sac where they don't allow any
Yeah,
cars. Have you heard
I
of
have
this?
heard of it.
Have you have you seen
I
it?
have not been in it, but I have driven by it. And I've watched
Right,
like
but
Instagram videos of people in it and living in it, but no, I have not personally experienced it.
I just learned about this and I am fascinated. For those who don't know, it's a carless community. It's like apartments and
Yeah,
studios, and it's like all inclusive, like amenities and blah blah blah, but no
no
cars.
car.
I don't know. Do you think it's gonna take off?
I think it's too niche. I think it's
Yeah.
too people are, especially here, it's not a walkable city. So you need a car to get from point A to point B. Even bikeable, it's barely bikeable. It's just so sprawled out here. It's wild to me. It's still crazy to me. I don't know where are you from?
We're in Michigan,
Okay.
so I'm familiar with Ohio.
Yeah.
You know.
From one part, say I'm in Tempe and I need to go to another city called Surprise, which is a part of the metro, it takes me an hour
Hmm.
just to get across the city.
For a metro area, other than needing to be drivable, is it really dense? Like, what are some kind of other big differences you've noticed about, kind of your life in Arizona?
It's not as dense as like say Chicago, New York, but it's huge. From Ohio, there's a little houses were built later and people have yards and like backyards and especially in Michigan, there's open areas, there's fields. My house growing up, we had a big backyard and then I come here and like a big backyard is like 30 feet deep. That was a big shocker for me. Coming from the Midwest where I think it's yard space is a little bit more. Everything's kind of cut in this little. All these new developments have these little yards, and they're trying to fit as many houses as they can in. So, which for me takes away a little bit of the charm, of owning your own home. But the houses here are way nicer anyway. So,
Oh
yeah,
yeah. And like, do you find like people living in your area, they are willing to give up kind of the big yard thing? Like, that's not as maybe popular in your area?
yeah. I mean, most people, unless they want a yard, but I think it's already established that you're probably not going to get that much of a yard, depending on your budget. I mean, if we're going million point 1.5 plus, then you have an opportunity to get a bigger backyard. But if you're under $1 million, it's mainly like just a smaller yard, which I
Oh,
mean, for most people, I think it's just normal.
totally. And then what would you say are kind of like the challenges you're facing in real estate right now, if any?
I'm still facing the initial challenge of when I moved out here is that I just don't know enough people. Back home, I felt like I knew everyone in the city, and then I come out here and know no one. I had to basically switch my whole real estate approach, which used to be like sphere and people I
Mm-hmm.
knew, to cold prospecting, expired calls, circle prospecting, just talking to random people, trying to build that sphere. And that's been the biggest challenge. I think I'm outgoing. I don't have a problem like starting a conversation, but going back to that discipline thing, sitting down and, you know, chugging out cold calls is is a very difficult thing sometimes. That's probably the biggest challenge I've faced.
It can be hard to hear no a lot, I'm sure.
Yeah. And it happens a lot, But there's always
I'm
like
sure.
that one person that you have a good conversation with and, keeps you going one more day, just one more call.
Totally. Erin, do you have any goals for the rest of the year that you'd like to share with us?
Personal goals. I got married on the 1st of June.
Oh, congratulations.
Definitely want to get in a home of my own. We're still in an apartment out here. So that's a big personal goal of mine and start a family. And then real estate. So since his name's Maudi, since we've partnered together, I think we really want to double our production like year over year. And we're on track to this year, which is good. I just think he's a native. So he has, that native Arizona connection. Together, we just bring much better customer service for the price of one. So I hope us together we can go further together than as we were alone.
That's awesome. I think you will. I think you're right on
Thank you.
track. Well, Aaron, thank you so much for joining me today. Would you like to tell people how they can find you, how they can work with
Yeah,
you?
my phone number is 419-932-1123. That's the easiest way to get a hold of me. I'm also on Instagram at Kramer Realty. That's the app I probably use the most. I try to post as frequently as I can on there. Yeah, I mean, you can email me too, akramerrealty@gmail.com. Those are the best ways to get a hold of me.
Awesome. And we'll link all that in the show notes so people can find you really
Sweet.
easily. Thanks,
Yeah.
Aaron. Thank you for listening to the Closing Table podcast, brought to you by WindowStill. I'm your host, Kat Schooler. Please make sure you are following our podcast on Apple and Spotify, and if you're part of our YouTube audience, hit that subscribe button. If you're enjoying this podcast, please feel free to leave us a comment or review. It helps us find more amazing listeners like you. We'll see you next time.